come as a believer. And my question, I guess, is, I mean, that's almost like the quantum concept of whether or not you're trying to study the particle or the wave. It is going to show up the way that you designate your question. Perhaps, just if you would speak a little bit more, if that is the same idea about the apocalypse, if the intentionality, just if you would speak a bit more about intentionality in that. I know you went into it a bit, but I'm just curious about how you bring in the quantum ideas as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what you're getting at is one of the major things that's happening right now, is that somehow, I mean, Carl Jung, you could say, was one of the people who foresaw this situation. He was somebody who recognized what he called the reality of the psyche, and that there wasn't this separation between material and inner psychic reality. And that somehow this realization was going to permeate to it was eventually going to become humanity's kind of property to deal with this situation, because it really is something to deal with. I mean, I think to the question of whether it's an elite, I mean, I don't think everybody is necessarily having that experience of synchronicity and psychic acceleration. I mean, I think a lot of people feel that something different and strange is going on, and that it's almost like, but for a lot of people, they don't have a template. I mean, I guess part of the purpose of the book was to give people a sort of template or scaffolding for thinking about it. If you're among that group who are finding that your kind of psychic intentions keep getting magnified, that it's pretty frightening actually, because you're actually you're sort of, this weight is being put on you in a way, and you actually have to take more responsibility for what you're putting out into the world, because it's coming back at you so fast. So that I see as it's like almost like it's almost, we're in this kind of training ground now. We're like beginning to be forced to make use of these latent psychic capacities, but we don't fully know how to do it properly. So there's this kind of level of confusion and going on. And at the same time, there's the sense of incredible kind of like devitalization or kind of energy withdrawal from the sort of mainstream paradigm that exists. I mean, if you look at, what the New York Times or something, it feels like it's almost like a husk, or somehow there's a kind of emptying out of the content of this previous form of consciousness, which has kind of reached its limit in terms of its kind of materialist framework, which is forcing this opening of this other reality at the same time.
Hi. Please don't take this the wrong way. I think your talk is great, and I intend to check out.
But do you think I'm crazy?
No. Actually, I don't. But I do have a question, and I think it's a very really relevant question. Maybe you can clarify your position on this. Question is, there's now in 2012 and this change or whatever, but do you think the vast majority of the people on this planet will know there's a change or even care? Because there's an element of human nature here. And when you talk about the apocalypse or this change or that change, some places on this planet are very peaceful. Some places are already in hell. And if you ask a Japanese veteran from 1940s, they've already gone through the apocalypse through Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And so it seems like it depends on your standpoint of what has changed, because you talk about 9/11, a couple thousand people dying, and I'm an American, I think it's a tragedy. But when you think about Rwanda and what happened there, close to 1 million, maybe over 1 million people dying in a very, very nasty way, you could say, well, we've gone through a shift here too. So I guess my thing is, there's a lot of things going on in the world right now, but it seems like what we're looking at, we're focusing on North American or westernized views or values of what a change is going to be. And I'm wondering if, will somebody in Mexico or will somebody in Zaire? What does it mean to me? Will I care? And if it is coming, okay, what do we do about it? Do we prepare for it? Do we just sit back and let it happen and see what happens? And if the question is, well, if not many people are going to notice, not many people are going to care in the sense of life goes on, could you explain the purpose of writing this? And is the purpose mainly for a certain audience, or is it?
Well, let me just go back and answer your question, because I was sort of going off your question.
Okay.
And actually this goes back to John Peterson's question, which I feel like I didn't do a good enough job answering. My paradigm, or what I'm holding as my vision of what this 2012 thing could represent, everybody who makes it through this kind of narrows or constriction period, which as I said, I hope is everybody there is, will know that we're in a different form of reality. In the same way, like Western pop culture has permeated the world, the same way cell phones, computers are. I mean, there are small isolated groups that have had no connection with that, but generally those have changed the consciousness of a huge mass of people on the planet. Okay, but I think this would even go deeper, because it would really be like, and we would need to basically take I hate to use the word need, because I hate to say should and need. But if we want to get through this constriction, this sort of period that's facing us, and actually deal with like species extinction, the whole ecological suicide path we're on now, it is going to take a huge motivation transformation of the collective human spirit, and it's going to have to develop out of the most advanced industrial cultures, the most educated cultures. So basically, like, all of the technical genius that now goes into the iPod or the whatever is going to have to be utilized to really be thinking about how do we stop species extinction? How do we stop the disruption of resource chains? And a lot of that goes back to like every country in the world. Every third world country, every country in Africa. We're going to have to think about what exists as models that are scalable. And I think there are, like, in terms of ecological design projects, Buckminster Fuller related followers, the stuff that Bioneers, which is this yearly conference, all of that kind of stuff is going to have to be scaled up in a huge hurry. So for instance, Paul Stamets is this genius mycologist who's figured out how to use mushrooms to bioremediate toxic waste. That is going to have to be scaled up like in a massive hurry, and he's going to have to be training thousands of people to go to Rwanda and the Ivory Coast and anywhere where there's toxic crap, and use those skills to get that stuff out of the ground. John Todd has created these ocean living machines for detoxifying water systems using microorganisms, algae, and fish and so on. That will have to be scaled up in a massive way. William McDonough's concepts of how you can create cradle-to-cradle industrial processes so that you don't create any waste. You actually, every process is self-regenerative. Like every industrial process on the planet should be operating in that way, or on the way towards that in this short period of time. So part of that would be having to create a new media paradigm, because the media paradigm that we're now presenting to the world is part of the suicide paradigm. It's this kind of empty consumption of crap and the spectacle celebrity culture. We're going to have to need to institute a new media paradigm that goes across the planet. Okay, and I think that's why we've been given, as part of this kind of noospheric transformation, these incredible communications tools. I mean, you look at YouTube or Google or MySpace. I mean, there's the potential for new and innovative media visions to go out, across the whole planet at like a really accelerated phase. So it's like, if we want to make this, this deadline. And by the way, it's like if you, as I said before, it's like if there wasn't a Mayan calendar, this period is still totally critical. If you look at, like we were just talking about this book, The Chaos Point by Ernest Laszlo, next 5 years, absolutely critical. Our window to make a transformation of the planetary situation, in terms of what's happening with water, air, species. We have to get this done right now. And there has to be this, huge transformation on the individual and the collective level to make it happen. People have to go really it's very quickly from thinking about themselves and their future as kind of ego-based individualities trying to get the best for themselves in a conventional ambition structure to sentient aspects of a planetary ecology that is in the throes of rapid transformation? And how can they best plug in the skills and strategies they have into helping that transformational process? So that's my answer.
Okay. Well, one quick follow-up question. But what if we don't do what we need to do within that critical... I guess what I'm getting at is that there are people out there that believe that regardless of what happens, the human capacity has a way to adapt to almost any situation. I mean, we haven't gone through, I guess, dramatic changes in our lifetime, in our short lifetime here. But there are some people that believe that regardless of what happens, apocalypse, whatever, ecological, economic circumstances, human beings will find a way to survive in one form or another.
Well, they can't survive if we've actually annihilated the biosphere's capacity to support mammalian life, and that really is like, I mean, you know, there are institutions who are saying there's like a 90% chance that the human species is not going to make it through this century, because if you look at like we're doing to all the sort of systemic biospheric support structures, coral reefs, you know, and every ecosystem on the planet is being damaged, you know, to a point where it's not going to be regenerable. You know, we have a small window of opportunity if we want to continue as a species, and maybe we don't. You know, I mean, I don't know. You know, I think it would be interesting. I'm more interested in dealing with the situation. It just seems more interesting. You know, I could be all pessimistic and say we're probably not going to make this happen. You know, but that to me just seems like less interesting. You know.
I had a question. Is this on? Okay. You've talked a little bit about the new business structure that you're moving into right now, and you've talked about visioning. And both of those seem like immediate hands-on things that can be done right now, patterning that is supportive of a good direction. Can you speak a little bit more to the what sort of group structures or what sort of business paradigms you're seeing as helpful right now? Because there's kind of a lot of groping in the dark. It's clear what doesn't work is becoming very clear, but what does work seems a little fuzzy. Can you speak to any beyond what you've already spoken of, to the paradigms or things that you're seeing that will be helpful?
You know, once again, I try to stop at places where I don't know. You know, I mean, it seems to me that the relocalization paradigm is really crucial. I mean, it's kind of absurd that everything we're buying is coming from like 6,000 miles away, made in factories, you know, and so on. So, yeah, I mean, relocalization, decentralization, exploration of different kind of systems and tools. And I think we have to enter into a very exploratory phase, whether it's permaculture systems, alternative energy systems. I mean, hopefully there will be a free energy device that will emerge that will just, you know, boom, we'll have it all solved. But in the interim, you know, it seems like we're going to have to become, you know, I hate to say have to become, we can do whatever we want, but, you know, what seems to be called for by the situation is a deeper level of engagement in exploration. I think, you know, local currencies might be interesting, different economic systems, stuff like that. You know, I mean, you know, it's pretty complicated for me as it is for anybody. I have a 5-year-old daughter. She's going to Manhattan Friends in New York. It's a really nice school. Like, you know, I want to see her in that school and having a great time when she's a teenager. You know, I don't want to deal with like some massive transformational process. You know. And yet, now I'm, I guess, making a living yakking about it, so it's something. You can't have fun talking about this stuff, you know, why bother?
Well, let me just say a couple of things. Number one, some of us are going to have dinner with Daniel here afterwards here, soon afterwards, and you're all... Any and all of you are welcome to join us if you'd like. We'll be hanging around and come and let us know as soon as possible, and we'll make appropriate reservations. It'll be somewhere close by. Secondly, Daniel, like you said, has a couple of books, and if you'd like to buy a book and have him sign it, say nice things about you, he'll do that as well. I woke up this morning kind of propelled out of a dream where I was scrambling around in a very large church that had many, many meetings going on in different rooms in the church. It was like